The days are gone where developers can, contrive on a concept of a project or have a project idea, compartmentalize the Indigenous ownership interest or the Indigenous perspective, bring it to the community and say, this is how you fit into the box. This is how you're going to play. Those days are gone.
Earlier this month, with little fanfare, the on switch was flicked on, powering up one of the biggest clean energy storage facilities in the world. The Oneida Energy Storage Project is in Ontario. It's a 1,000-megawatt lithium-ion battery facility that will store energy in off-peak times and feed it back into the grid when demand requires it. That reduces the demand for gas-powered plants, it saves money, and it is green. It reduces emissions. It's a clean energy win, but it's also the story of a successful partnership on Indigenous ownership for energy projects in Canada. The partnership is between Northland Power, Six Nations of the Grand River Development Corporation, NRStor, Aecon Concessions, and the Mississaugas of the Credit Business Corporation. And the reason we're so interested in this, it's exactly the kind of partnership we expect to see more of as Canada tries to ramp up its resource development projects and clean energy projects from coast to coast to coast. Annette Verschuren is Chair and CEO of NRStor. Matt Jamieson, President and Chief Executive Officer of Six Nations of the Grand River Development Corporation, partners in this project. Thanks to both of you for being with us.
Hi, Amanda.
Hi, thanks for having us, Amanda.
So this was not an overnight success. Annette, I'm going to start with you because NRStor's technology is literally at the heart of this thing. How long has this been in the works?
Well, I guess we started on this project around 2018. And I'll tell you, one of the things that we decided to do at NRStor, we wanted a First Nation, First Indigenous partnership to start the project. And I repeat this, to start the project. Not to end it, to start it. And so one of my colleagues, Jason Rio, had worked with Matt Jamieson, and so we started talking to Matt, and we went and visited Matt and the chief and everyone at First Nations to explain what this project might look like. We decided to be a 50% partner each. We shared in the expenses of developing this project, and it resulted 8 years later, in this project. Took way too long. 6 years to develop, less than 2 years to build. If we really truly want to build out Canada and build out infrastructure, we have to go a hell of a lot faster.
So Matt, when Annette came to you, and anyone who knows Annette knows she could probably sell ice in the far north. She's very persuasive. But what was that initial what drew you in? Why did this feel like it made sense? It was just a blank slate to begin with.
Yeah, well, it was. But at that time, Amanda, we being the Six Nations Development Corporation, had been a pretty significant investor in the renewable energy market here in Ontario. We have over 2 gigawatts of energy generation assets that we've invested in the past. And we saw firsthand the intermittent nature of these assets and how they produce power. Well, we also heard from stakeholders in the market that, there was some frustrations around rising energy costs and so on. And we were looking out the window saying, geez, wouldn't it be great as we continue to build these assets if we could have a better system, a system that could harness this value, this energy, and store it and use it for a time and optimize it, not just for its great attributes, but also for the benefit of the ratepayer. And that thinking just happened to align with Jason and Annette's visit to the community. And we put our minds together, we learned about each other. And I think that in the formative stages of the Oneida Energy Storage Project, it was really a meeting of the minds. We understood enough about the energy market that we knew we needed a solution. Just so happened that Annette and her team brought that solution to us. And we were aligned right from the get-go that we're in pursuit of something much more than just simply a transaction. It was about how can we do something together. And really that was really easy for me to align myself with Annette and her team, because their pursuit of value wasn't just a monetary one. It was about how do we do things differently? How do we get innovative? And how do we demonstrate to the world what's possible with Indigenous partnerships?
So important, as you say. This is where Canada needs to be with more urgency than ever. And I want to talk about that. Before we get to that, Annette, let's talk about the importance of this project, what it represents. It is a milestone in sort of the grid management and how we think about electricity in maybe the world, but definitely in Canada, North America. So what does it mean?
Look, this energy storage project's biggest in the country, the fourth largest project in the world. Stationary product. It is gigantic. When you take a look at the site, you're like it's going into another world. The 283 batteries connected to the grid transmission interjection. This was a complicated and exciting project that really needed to be done in Canada, really needed to open the market so that we can take the capacity that we've built and basically use it much more efficiently. We need to use our assets more efficiently right across the grid, Amanda. And that's what I love about storage. I often say storage is it's like bacon. It goes with everything. Like you put it in houses, and we do energy storage in homes. We do it with industrial sites. We do it on the grid directly. And it is really important to distribute efficiently this energy that is so precious to us, and particularly in Ontario, where 96% is renewable. And so managing that better is the key to this success story.
This is the kind of project, and Matt, I'm curious for whether you ran into this early on. You might get a little NIMBYism, good on paper, good theoretically, but do we really want that where you want to put it, and what's the right place, and how does it plug in? Was that a part of, was there any tension around that for you in the early days?
Well, actually, not as much as you might think, Amanda. In terms of the visual aspects of the project, it is large. It's a large storage project, but it's within a 10-acre footprint. So when you think of, call it the horsepower you get out of this power unit, in terms of land consumption, it doesn't take up a large footprint. And the geographic location where the site is, you could imagine it's sited behind a transformer station right along a transmission corridor. So the land value there was, not prime land for residential development, and is in fact perfectly suited for what we've built there. And we've heard loudly from our neighbors. Some of them don't want to see any more wind turbines, and some of them don't like these huge solar developments. But to Annette's point, we needed to put tools into the energy market to optimize the things that we already have. And this energy storage project, 1,000 megawatt hours, provides enough power for the city of Oshawa, and it's the equivalent of taking 40,000 cars off the road in terms of GHG reductions. It checks a lot of boxes, and it really is compelling from its environmental attributes alone.
What was really important for us was to do it right. And so we did the environmental work. We dug the holes. We made sure this was the right place. One of the things that we did, Matt and I and Jason, we took we did this during COVID. So we did 10 webcasts and talked to the community. And talk to anybody that wanted to speak and learn about this project. It's really important to get out there and face the tough questions, face the reclamation questions, face all the questions that people have.
Where was the government in this? The governments you needed to partner with? At what point were they part of your process? At what point were they on side?
You know who was absolutely terrific, and I'm going to boast about Canada Infrastructure Bank. They were there in the very beginning with us, Amanda. They were there through the 3 directives for the 600% increase in the lithium ion price. They were there and they worked with us, right? That was the key. This was a first. This was innovative. If we left it to the banks and the existing finances, we would never get it done. So CIB was absolutely they never gave up with us. The other group of people that were extraordinarily important to us was the province of Ontario. We had 3 ministers that lived with us, starting with Rickford and then Smith and then Lecce got it over the line. But without them and without their support and their belief in where we needed to go, it wouldn't have happened. The third government department was NRCan. And NRCan gave us a substantial grant that really put it over and what's really cool is that As a result of this, there are 3,000 to 4,000 megawatts and RFPs going out there, not needing all this government financing, because the purpose of CIB is to build the market, right? And so to take the risk with us. And so that's a big call out to CIB, to NRCan, and to the province of Ontario.
Yeah, I can't agree more, Annette. We couldn't have done it without those key players in the market. But the Oneida project, on reflection, we were the energy storage maker in the province. There was no program, there was no campaign. It took a lot of time, a lot of convincing, and Annette and I were out on a limb many times with our investment in the project and scratching our heads saying, geez, how are we going to get this done? But you know what? To the credit of the stakeholders that Annette mentioned, we were able to get there. And then immediately following the contracting of Oneida, you saw the IESO issue an expedited RFP, and now further RFPs signaling, geez, we need more of these energy storage assets. And we're a happy participant in all those RFPs.
The Public Policy Forum has done some new research looking at, this notion of how we need to get big projects done to market fast. Everybody's talking about this. One of the 4 pillars that they identify is the one that you guys have really kind of highlighted here, which is that relationship with Indigenous communities. And the PPF report would say this is really built on trust. In fact, projects will move at the speed of trust, they say. I want you both to talk about the learning that you would offer others who want to take. So think of the Ring of Fire, think of East-West pipelines. In this context, this is going to be a little controversial, but I assume, Annette, that you went into this using a framework of Bill C-69, the duty to consult of the
Yes.
whatever the kind of current framework is. It worked for you, so
Yes.
it can work.
Yep.
It might change, but
Yeah.
it's interesting to me that you did manage to get it done, even though everybody people hate Bill C-69. It's the Stop the Pipelines bill,
Yeah.
but you managed to do it.
Look, I grew up with the Mi'kmaq in Cape Breton, and I really have a great relationship with the Indigenous people, and I really believe in reconciliation, economic reconciliation. So it is in our blood. 16 people that work at my little company believe, and they really want to consult with and work with Indigenous peoples. I think it's critically important. The land in our country, all of our territory of Turtle Island is owned by, it's not owned by, but it is a land that our Indigenous people have lived. So we have that responsibility. It's respect, Amanda. It's respect for the history of this country. It's respect for the Indigenous community that we really. So we never started talking about the negative pieces of this. We just said, why don't we just go ahead and do this the way we believe it should be done? And I had an amazing partner on the other side of me, and we're doing, and Matt and I are doing other projects too. And we're doing it across the country because people are knowing and seeing that we truly share. And sharing means not just taking all the money and running. Sharing means recognizing and giving benefits and designing those deals so there are benefits to the community. That, to me, is the key. And so I never questioned that.
It wasn't an afterthought, it sounds like. It was the premise.
It was the premise. It was the premise.
It is the principle behind our relationship. And, the reality of it is in Canada, Indigenous people make up, 5% of the population, but yet have tremendous control over, I would say, 100% of the land mass, whether it's through a treaty or land claim or land assertion and so on. Gone are the days where development happens and the Indigenous party is the last party at the table. And, we can do things differently. We can be creative and innovative. Mm-hmm. And, the Oneida Project speaks to the meeting of the minds with private business coming together with an Indigenous community to pursue an innovative idea, to create value, not just for us as investors and owners of the project, but for the ratepayers of Ontario and for the environment and our future generations. I think this signals the new future of Canada. I don't believe that any large infrastructure project will get built in this country without a real meaningful Indigenous partnership. And the days are gone where developers can, contrive on a concept of a project or have a project idea, compartmentalize the Indigenous ownership interest or the Indigenous perspective, bring it to the community and say, this is how you fit into the box. This is how you're going to play. Those days are gone. And the reality of it is, the way we see development moving forward is that ideas are born through mutual collaboration, and there is no better ally in advancing a project than when you stand shoulder to shoulder with an Indigenous community who believes in the project and has that buy-in. You can accomplish anything.
Matt, what do you think when you hear about talk about killing C69 and a new era where we have to move fast on projects? Do you worry that we're going to lose some of that underpinning?
Yes, I do. I believe we need to accelerate, but we need to accelerate in a responsible way. We can't jeopardize the environmental impacts and the archaeological importance of the things that we do. Listen, the world has been built around Indigenous people for centuries. We were sequestered on reserves, and we weren't part of the dialogue. And we've seen the damage that it causes to neighborhoods and to our, into our green spaces. And it does represent a threat. And so what our interest is, let's get to the table. Let's get to the table soon. Let's help control the narrative. Let's have input on project locations. And let's really screen the environmental impacts and the archaeology impacts so that we do things responsibly. I'm not afraid, and I know that most First Nation communities are not afraid to participate and accelerate opportunity, provided that they're done responsibly. And, public policy plays a role, but I think it comes down to common sense and collaboration and working together to hear people's perspectives and really, really respect each other's positions. And ultimately, you're going to arrive at a product that's that much more beneficial because it has the buy-in that's needed in order to accelerate.
There's no one that says it better than my friend. And I really believe you have to go in with that premise. And I have seen, I'm working across the country, in Nova Scotia, in PEI, in New Brunswick, in Alberta, in British Columbia. And it's all working because we are making the partnership work up front in the beginning. And so Matt and I have tough moments? Holy smokes. Did he wonder whether he was losing, all his money at the front end? Oh my God. Of course he did. We had tough stuff that we had to deal with. But Amanda, we also had great partners. We had Aecon. Matt and I both know Aecon, and we'll talk a little bit about that if we can. But Aecon came into this project, committed close to $1 million before even we got approval on any of these contracts or anything. Just bet on us, right? Bet on Matt and I and our teams. And they were there and pulled a lot of the engineering together, did a lot of the work, have enormous experience. And so that was the front end. And then we had to go and find a great Canadian majority shareholder, right? The really important piece. And we went out to market, and Northland Power won that, okay? And Northland Power also had very similar alignment than how we thought. We wanted to build a great project on time and on schedule. We said that from the very beginning, and we did. Yep. And they're great. They did a terrific job in project managing and building this project. It's just been absolutely terrific. I'd love for Matt, can you also talk about AFN or A6N?
A6N.
Yeah.
A6N. Yeah. So, to Annette's point, we've both known Aecon for a long time. And you know what? I have to give Aecon credit. They were an early adopter in working with Indigenous communities. And Six Nations was one of them. We struck a partnership with Aecon in 2015 to create something known as A6N. And A6N is a general partnership we have with Aecon that services the utility space. And we employ a lot of people in our community. And through our work and the influence that we had as a partner in this project, we were able to ensure that Aecon was the EPC contractor for the project. And as a consequence of that, we were able to also ensure that A6N, an employer of a lot of people in our community, actually performed the work at the project. So it was an example in vertical integration and not just being a developer and playing the developer role, but also investing in the project and also building the project through other collaborations we have in the market. So, we're very happy and very proud that Aecon's been a part of this, not only as a contractor, but an investor and our partner in the A6N General Partnership. We put, over 300,000 man hours into this project with no lost time of work. And we built a lot of experience, a lot of credibility in the A6N team. And they've gone on to fulfill other projects in the region. And we continue to build on that capacity and skill set that we've learned.
Which is what's so intriguing about this, of course. It's an interesting project. It's going to be good for the grid. It may well, sounds like, be replicated elsewhere. But the model is something that people will look at because, of course, we need to be doing this. This is the path to be getting big projects done in this country. So let's talk about what you learned and what you might change. Obviously, the partnership was central and important. Governments, Annette, helped. Where did they hinder? I mean, what if you wanted to get this done faster in a different way, or what might you have changed along the way?
I think if I had a dream team in Ontario and with the feds working together on all elements, the environment, the energy department, the finance department. I mean, it is really hard to silo ourselves into getting stuff done. Okay, it really is. And I would say that federally, and I would say that at the provincial level as well. And, I love that our premier keeps trying to reduce red tape. It is tough. It is tough to create new markets in a highly regulated industry. It is tough to get the Ontario Energy Board on side, the ISO board on side, all of the elements of getting a project done. If I had a wish, I just wish that they got themselves organized to help us instead of us having to organize them to help us. And to me, that would be, I think, an amazing positive experience on that end. Look, Matt and I managed ACON, we managed CIB, we managed NRCan, we managed all of that. And we worked together, we collaborated. But if that piece could have been quicker, but we also went through COVID. We went through a period of amazing inflation in terms of 600% increase in lithium ion. We had to walk from this project 3 times, but we never gave up. And the province kept giving us other directives. And the ISO kept giving us, because they discovered that this was going to be a very important tool for them in their toolbox. So if I had a wish, it would be, if the governments really want to execute quickly, they've got to get themselves organized so that they serve us as we expand and grow.
Can we hope that those organizations learn something along the way as well, that the next project, whether it's this consortium or somebody else, that they will be faster? Or do they kind of lurch from one thing to the next and it's the same every time, where it's all brand new every time?
What do you think, Matt? Is it getting better for you on other projects?
Listen, I think that there's a movement happening, Amanda. The one thing that if I could take some time back, and I wish I could do something differently, the Canada Infrastructure Bank played a tremendous role in this project. We couldn't have got this done without them. And you know what? They're a tremendous team, very flexible. But the one thing that we missed out on was their new Indigenous Equity Loan Program. It wasn't in place at the time we did the financial close of this transaction. And had it been, we would have taken a larger equity piece in the project. But the access to capital is one of the biggest hurdles that Indigenous communities face in this country. I'm very pleased that CDEV is working on the new National Loan Guarantee Program. I'm excited by what that brings, because it brings options to communities who want to participate. And so if I could have one thing to do over, that would be it. But I can tell you this, I think a textbook example of what's possible with Indigenous inclusion, because if you consider it, we've got the federal government with NRCan, Canada Infrastructure Bank, we've got the provincial government with the IESO as the contractor, the contracting party. We've got now ACON and Northland Power, publicly traded companies. We've got NRStor, private company. We've got Six Nations, the First Nation. Now we've got the Mississaugas, the Credit, located in Haldimand County. All steps of government have come together to build something that's great. And I think that's symbolic of how things can be done in the future.
One thing that you've said, that you both talked about, and Matt, it feels important, is that there was a company that had already established the relationship. So you were, in other words, ACON and your band had already worked together on a pipeline of knowledge and relationships, so that when this came along, you already had it. Are other businesses doing the same thing? I mean, do we have a network out there of relationships that we can now bear fruit from?
I mean, it comes down to trust. And I can tell you, we launched this partnership with ACON, the A6N General Partnership, in 2015. And we've got a complicated legal agreement that you'd have in your drawer and that, lawyers have to look at. But I can tell you, Never once have I had to pull that agreement out to figure out what the rights and obligations are of our party or of myself. We've been able to build that same relationship with NRStor and Annette. Her team get it. We just pick up the phone, we problem solve. And you know what? And during this process, Annette and I, we were on the phone a lot. And as the lithium prices are all over the place, it's like, okay, let's get on the phone. Let's figure this out. How do we solve for this? How do we solve for that? That's how things will get done. Trust. I think that companies generally in this country are coming around. You can see, public companies and crown corporations are starting to embrace reconciliation action plans. And you know what? I welcome that. But I am a believer in what gets measured gets done. And so I like to see reconciliation action plans, but I also like to see report cards. I like to see results. I like to see metrics. And we're starting to see that. Some of it's trickling in, but there are some actors out there in the Canadian market that are really taking this serious, and it's good to see.
Should we expect to see, Annette, other projects like this? Is this the first of many that NRStor might be part of?
Yes, there's no question. And so one of the things that NRStor is an innovative leader, right? We love to do projects that are out there in the first. And so this is a big milestone for us. This is a wonderful project that we really all work very hard on. And so, but there is a lot of work to be done in residential energy storage and fleet management, and these facilities should have access to backup power for industrial projects. So there's all kinds of projects that we are working on that represent the future. But to have Oneida behind us is a big advantage. It used to be we'd have to go out and we'd be knocking every door down. Now they're coming to us, And we're seeing new technologies, and we're looking at thermal storage. We're looking at hydrogen. We're looking at all kinds of different projects, and but we have a great sense of how to make the economics of these projects work, and that's the key.
And Matt, you learn from every single one of these projects. Other Indigenous groups, First Nations, might come to you to say, teach us how to do what you're doing. What's your big message? Because not all there, everybody's can be at different stages and maybe even different levels of acceptance around this stuff.
Absolutely. And then, the reality of it is Canada, we have over 630 First Nations in this country, and not all of them have the capacity or resources that we have, and they're at different level of preparedness or ability or willingness to embrace opportunity. But my message is always to other communities is take time to get organized, to get prepared, to put good governance systems in place, so that when the opportunities come, you have the ability to connect and interface. And then hire good advisors and consultants to help you and to help interpret some of this information. But look for those partners who've done it before, the partners that have established, a track record of success. And then, check their references, talk to the other communities. Like I've spoken to many communities who've called me and asked me, Matt, can you come to our community and help us do what you do? I said, well, that's not really what I do, but what we will do, and what we have done is we have offered to partner with other First Nations across the country. If they want to invite us into their territory, and we'll come in and show them our playbook, if you will, and how we do things. And if it's an opportunity for us to help them learn and build capacity for themselves so that in the future they can do these things on their own, that's part of our mandate. We want to share, and we also want to embrace opportunity across the country, and we're actively doing that.
Amanda, it's a little great short story, but Matt went to Cape Breton and worked with Chief Terry Paul, and who's just a wonderful, wonderful leader, business leader, Indigenous leader in Cape Breton. And that's where Matt saw the potential of investment too, Didn't you, Matt?
Did.
Huh? Yeah. And so now, and we're working with really small. I'm working with one organization that has 400 members. You know what? We have to start everywhere, and we have to build capacity. And when Matt and I started, I was smaller, he was smaller, but. But we figured it out, right? We built capacity. We brought people in to help us, and that learning is going to have to be replicated in all the First Nations peoples of Canada. Some won't want to do it, Amanda. Some will want to do it aggressively. Some will want to do it in a mediocre fashion. Whatever we've got to provide the opportunity. True economic reconciliation. I spent a lot of time with Maurice Sinclair. It was the most emotional time of my life. And to see that man and what he did in terms of presenting all the recommendations. But that number 92 is really important to me, and it was really important to him because he felt that was the route out of the poverty and the challenges being faced by the Indigenous people. It is economic equality, and that's what we have to do.
Yeah, it was funny, Annette. Yeah, there's many success stories across this country. There's this movement happening. You can see Indigenous nations, rightfully taking back and being innovative and creative in the things that they do. And and Terry Paul's community and the Clearwater seafood deal, for decades they fought about the fisheries industry there. And you know what they did? They just bought the industry.
Yeah.
I love that. That is a game changer.
Yeah.
And you know what? I can tell you that the trajectory that we're on and our growth and our aspirations as Canada's largest First Nation community, we've got big aspirations. But we're going to do things responsibly. We're going to bring the community along with us, help interpret some of these opportunities, and explain to our community members not just what we're doing, but why we're doing it and why it was meaningful for the community. I envision a future where First Nations are participating in the economy, not because there's a Supreme Court ruling that says you have to, but because it's just simply good business.
So good to talk to both of you about this. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks,
Amanda. Great talking to you.